Sunday school movement actually started, I believe, in England way back, late 1700s, 1800s. Kids worked in factories, long days, had no formal schooling, opportunity for formal schooling. So Sunday was the only day they did not work, and there was a movement within Christian circles to educate these children. So Sunday school started out way back as a means for not only promoting biblical literacy, which was part of their motivation, but it was to help kids learn to read, help them learn to write. So it was a real education, and it was on Sunday, so it's called Sunday school. We began as a Sunday school association back in the 1880s. I'm not quite sure the year that started, but that was a thriving Sunday school association, and in fact, so well received in the area that they decided they needed to have their own building. They met at what was the Watchung school before that, the Sunday School Association did. So they built a building to house the Sunday School Association, and they did it by hauling big stones and digging a deep basement.
My uncle, Edgar, before he could go out on a date, he would have to go up to the hills, they used to call it, or the mountaintop, and bring so many stone rock for the church. And he would have to bring, I don't know what my grandmother would tell me you have to bring, but he had to bring them down and dump them before he could go out on a date, or if he wanted to do something with the kids or something. Mm-hmm. That was his thing. He had to do so many stone and I know a lot of them, the kids had to do that. That was the way they got a lot of the stone for the church.
But all of the labor was all done by all the town fathers, whoever could do anything. Mr. McDonald, who was a banker and lived just down the road a little bit on Valley Road, even he was over there working. You never saw him. You will not see him in a picture without a suit on, but he was over there. They dug the foundation. They literally carted the stones off of the second mountain, because this mountain has a little bit different type of rocks and stuff on it.
And they only had so much money, so they started out, I think, with only having $2,000, I think the story is. And Colonel Wilson drove by and was so inspired by what was going on. He was a newspaper editor in Plainfield, and he just seemed so attracted to watching this building go up. He had money. He decided he wanted to give money to the project, and in our records, I think he gave probably about $3,500 or something so that they could really finish it, because I think it might have stalled a little bit because they had no funds. At that time, it was an enormous amount of money. So eventually the chapel, we call it the chapel, but it was the building that housed the Sunday School Association, got finished. And the story gets a little hazy for me at that point. I don't know if people decided to call it Mary E. Wilson Chapel after, or church. It wasn't a formal church though, even at that time. I don't know if they decided to do it in honor of his gift, or he might have said, I would like this building named after my deceased wife, to honor her, and I'll give the money so that can happen. So I don't know which way it went, but that's why we are called Mary E. Wilson Memorial Church today. It goes all the way back to Colonel Wilson, editor of newspaper.
My grandmother, though, we lived, of course, right next to it, mm-hmm. to the chapel. And she did, and she used to look and see what was going on at the church all the time. She was sick and had diabetes, And so she was sort of a bedridden person, but my grandfather made a sunroom. So she used to live in that sunroom, and it looked right out over the church. And so she could see what was going on, and whenever she saw something that she didn't think was quite right, she would, of course, let the church know. And I know they had some of the roof was coming off, it was slate. So she complained, I guess, for a while about this slate coming off the roof. So I can remember my grandfather saying, "You shouldn't get so angry." So she called up, and she had it fixed, and she said it was a gift to the church.
Service was all ready, but the windows weren't in yet. The stained glass windows were not here from Flemington. It was the glassworks in Flemington that was that was making the glass. And of course it came in by horse and buggy, and there were no paved roads, so any kind of weather, especially snow, and it was according to him, it was snowy. He said, "But you know what? We had our first meeting anyway. We were all ready and all worried about it. The windows came the day before, so we worked all night putting them in so that we could have our first service there." And then he said they said they were still holding Sunday school or classes, services in the old school. And on Sunday morning they marched over from the school over to the new church.
My first memory of living in Watchung is Reverend Ost. He came to visit us and welcome us to town. And then a couple days later, we saw him driving the fire truck, zooming up Hillcrest Road, and thought that was pretty curious. He was a nice man.
There was a good group of young people meeting here while Reverend Ben Marshall was the pastor. They were looking for someone to help lead the young people.
So one of my friends, Marcia King, and I were in charge of a meeting for the one Sunday night, and we didn't know what we were going to do, but we had to take care of the meeting.
She happened to mention to the others, there was this nice young minister in Mountainside that I think might be great to help lead our young people's group. So he came, and the story is he sat on the floor down in our basement, which is our Blackburn Hall, and played the guitar and just enamored the young folks. He was young. I think he was a student preacher at the time. He had a wonderful personality. He was very personable. They liked him immediately, so they invited him back and back and back for their young people's group. Eventually, Reverend Marshall passed away. It was very tragic. His death was very tragic. The church was left without a minister. But Roland Ost had been helping with the young people, and they said, well, maybe he'd be interested in being minister here. And by that time, he had already moved to a church in Scotch Plains. So they sought him out to have him come preach a sermon, and they elected him as pastor. He was willing to be here. He already knew the kids, and he knew the people pretty well, and felt that this would be a wonderful place to raise a family.
They asked him if he would fill in a few of the services, which he did do, and the older people got to like him too, and so he became our next minister. So that's how we got Mr. Ost.
It seems like historically folks here have loved to eat. So dinners, breakfasts have always been a vital part of what we do. And I think probably the longest running continuous meal event has been our Thanksgiving breakfast. They used to serve people down in what's our Blackburn Hall, and now we continue on the tradition, but we have this lovely room now and this lovely space where people are served breakfast. It used to be on Thanksgiving Day. We've continued that, but we don't do it on Thanksgiving Day anymore. We do it on the Sunday right before Thanksgiving. But yeah, throughout the years, there are special events. One of our more recent ones has been a mystery dinner theater, which is a just rather unusual thing for a church to do, but carries on the spirit of having special programs and meals. It's a fundraiser often for our mission trip that we have in the summer.
Well, the kids always had their little Christmas show, and which was a big thing then, and of course all the mothers were very proud of their kids and everything, and got dressed up in their best. We used to have dinners, and that was before the basement was done over. It used to just be an old cellar, and they had this old kitchen I can remember, and it was really not up to date at all. But we used to have wonderful dinners down there with the church, and the church was a big part of the family life of Watchung when we were young kids. That was, even the people that didn't belong to the church, so like the boys and girls from North Plainfield that were our friends, used to come up because our church always had so much going on.